The evening started with high energy as Stephen Colbert welcomed Bruce Willis onto his late-night stage, expecting a fun and light-hearted conversation filled with laughs and classic Hollywood stories. The audience cheered loudly as Bruce walked in with his trademark cool demeanor, flashing a quick smile and wave before taking his seat. Everything seemed normal at first. Stephen cracked a few jokes, Bruce chuckled politely, and the conversation rolled along smoothly. But no one could have predicted that one offhand comment from Colbert would spark a dramatic moment that left the entire studio in shock. The interview began with stories about Bruce's legendary career, from Die Hard to his more recent projects. Colbert teased him about always playing the tough guy, jokingly asking if Bruce ever had to act tough at all. Bruce laughed, leaning back in his chair and playing along, but there was a seriousness in his tone when he insisted that even tough guys could be vulnerable. The audience clapped, appreciating his sincerity. Colbert smiled, but then he pivoted into riskier territory. Stephen pulled out a story Bruce had once told in another interview, about doing a dangerous stunt himself without a double. With his usual comedic flair, Colbert said he wasn't buying it. "Come on, Bruce," Stephen chuckled, "you expect us to believe you jumped off that building yourself? Be honest, wasn't it just some guy in a wig?" The audience laughed, expecting Bruce to roll with the joke. But instead of laughing, Bruce's expression shifted, and the mood immediately changed. Bruce leaned forward, narrowing his eyes slightly, and said firmly, "That was me. Every word of it." His voice carried a weight that silenced the chuckles in the crowd. Stephen, sensing the tension but trying to keep things light, smirked and replied, "So you're sticking to that story? Sounds like Hollywood magic to me." Then, in what would turn out to be a mistake, he added, "You know, Bruce, I think you're lying." The studio gasped. Some thought Stephen was just pushing the joke further, but the word, liar, landed with a thud. Bruce froze for a second, then shook his head slowly, visibly insulted. "A liar," he repeated, his voice colder than before. The audience went silent, unsure if this was still part of the act. Colbert tried to chuckle it off, raising his hands as if to say he was only joking, but Bruce wasn't smiling anymore. The tension escalated as Bruce explained that he had risked himself countless times for the authenticity of his roles, and dismissing that effort wasn't funny. He reminded Colbert, and everyone watching, that behind every stunt was real sweat, risk, and pain. The atmosphere in the studio grew heavier with every word, and Colbert's usually sharp wit suddenly seemed to falter. He tried to interject with humor, but Bruce wasn't giving him an opening. At one point, Bruce turned to the audience and said, "People think these stories are just movie magic. But when I tell you I did something, I did it. I don't need anyone calling me a liar about my own life." His voice was strong, and the crowd, though still tense, responded with a round of applause. It was clear many were siding with Bruce in that moment. Colbert, realizing the gravity of his slip, shifted uncomfortably in his chair. Colbert finally admitted he might have pushed the joke too far. He tried to apologize lightly, saying, Okay, maybe liar was a bad word, but the damage was done." Bruce, though not raising his voice, kept a stern expression that spoke volumes. The atmosphere was so thick that even the band fell quiet, waiting for the host to regain control of the show. The rest of the interview limped forward awkwardly. Colbert, usually quick and fearless, chose his words far more carefully. Bruce gave shorter answers, less willing to play along with the humor. Every time Stephen tried to steer the conversation back into lighter waters, Bruce's presence reminded everyone of the earlier clash. The audience, caught between laughter and unease, never fully recovered either. By the time the segment ended, the energy had completely shifted from excitement to discomfort. Bruce offered Colbert a polite handshake before walking off stage, but the tension was still palpable. Colbert attempted to lighten the mood with a closing joke, but even he seemed rattled. The cameras cut to commercial, leaving the studio buzzing with whispers about what they had just witnessed. The moment didn't just end in the studio. Within hours, social media exploded. Clips of Colbert calling Bruce Willis a liar spread across platforms like wildfire. Fans of Bruce were furious, accusing Colbert of disrespecting a Hollywood legend. Others argued it was just comedy gone wrong, but almost everyone agreed that the exchange felt more real than scripted. The controversy gave the interview a life far beyond late-night television. Commentators debated the fallout for days. Some said Colbert should have known better than to challenge Bruce's credibility on live television. Others defended him, insisting comedians are supposed to push boundaries. But Bruce's reaction, calm, stern, and undeniably authentic, made it clear that this wasn't just a joke to him. To many, it was a reminder that even in comedy, respect has its limits. Behind the scenes, reports surfaced that Bruce had been furious once the cameras stopped rolling. Insiders claimed he left the building without sticking around for any backstage chatter or follow-up photos. Colbert, meanwhile, was said to be shaken, realizing his usual playful banter had crossed a line. Producers scrambled to control the narrative, but the clip was already viral, and the damage was done. Over the following weeks, Colbert subtly addressed the incident, joking about his own mistake in monologues but never directly mentioning Bruce's name. Fans speculated whether the two had reconciled privately, but neither star commented publicly. The silence only added to the mystery, leaving people to wonder if Bruce would ever return to the late-night circuit. For Bruce, the moment only reinforced his tough, no-nonsense reputation. Fans admired him for standing his ground, showing that he wasn't afraid to call out disrespect, even in front of millions. For Colbert, the incident became a cautionary tale. Even seasoned comedians can misjudge the line between teasing and offending. It was a moment that reminded everyone of the risks of live television. In the end, the exchange became one of the most talked about moments in late-night history. It was raw, unscripted, and unforgettable, a clash between humor and pride that played out in front of a stunned audience. Whether it was a mistake or just bad timing, Stephen Colbert calling Bruce Willis a liar became a story fans would never forget. And as for Bruce, walking away with his head held high, he left little doubt that when he says something about his life, he means it. Calling him a liar wasn't just a mistake, it was a lesson in respecting the man behind the legend.